Hello and welcome to the Dan Beasley Show. Today's show is going to encompass the NSA leaks, the White House requesting information on people's health records, mental health records, also um, the trip for Obama to Africa, as well as weather information and also information regarding storm damage and also solar eclipses. Um, Today, we're going to start out with our first story. It's coming in from um, yahoo.com. It's off of Bloomberg, and it's talking about Snowden leak is bad news for the U.S. businesses, Hayden says. Not only is the government pulling in information from all of the digital sources throughout the country. It's also pulling in information from American companies that you apply for employment with, and these companies are supplying the government with that information. This story starts out by saying that leaked information on U.S. government surveillance programs has punished American business, which has complied with court orders, says Michael Hayden, former director of the NSA and CIA. Hayden says the former National Security Agency contractor Edward Snowden's disclosure of details about the NSA collection of telephone and internet data to the UK Guardian and the Washington Post newspapers will have a harmful impact on U.S. businesses and on the government's ability to combat terrorism. There would be some operational fallout, Hayden says in the interview with CNN's Fareed Zakaria. GPS airing tomorrow. We will have reminded our enemies how good and comprehensive we are at this. Snowden, 29, fled to Hong Kong with classified materials he allegedly stole from the NSA. He's worked for NSA contractors, including McLean, Virginia-based Booz Allen Hamilton Holding Corp., or BAH, which was his most recent employer. Okay, we're now moving on to our next story. A lot of news has been put out about Obamacare. However, no one seems to know what's in it. This is a story from the New York Times, accessed through the WorldNet Daily, and it says, what Sweden can tell us about Obamacare. Last month, for the 37th time, the House of Representatives voted to repeal Obamacare. That's 37 times, with many Republicans saying that its call for greater government involvement in the healthcare system spells doom. Yet most other industrial countries have healthcare systems with far more government involvement than we are ever likely to see under Obamacare. What does their experience tell us about Republican fears? Well, while in Sweden, as a visiting scholar, the author of this article, Robert H. Frank, asked several Swedish health economists to share their thoughts about that question, and they have spent their lives under a system in which most healthcare providers work directly for the government. Like economists in most other countries, they tend to be skeptical of large bureaucracies. So if extensive government involvement in healthcare is indeed a recipe for doom, they should have clear evidence of that by now. Yet none of them have voiced the kind of complaints about their recalcitrant bureaucrats and runaway health costs that invariably surface in similar conversations with American colleagues. Little wonder, the Swedish system performs superbly, and my Swedish colleagues cited evidence for that with obvious pride. The United States spends more than $8,000 a person on health care per year, well more than twice that what Sweden spends. Yet health outcomes are far better in Sweden along virtually every dimension. Its infant mortality rate, for example, was recently less than half of that of the U.S. Males between ages of 15 to 60 were almost twice as likely to die in any given year in the United States than in Sweden. And in fairness, those differences result partly from lifestyle. In Sweden, workers are more likely to commute by bicycle than by car. And for example, and obesity is far less common. Absolute poverty and income equality, both associated with health outcomes, are also lower. But when illness strikes, the Swedish healthcare systems responds efficiently, and managers have exploited economies of scales by consolidating services into fewer but larger hospitals. The American system has also gone through consolidation, but by contrast, boutique hospitals are also more common here, partly in response to demands from patients with very high-cost health plans. In large hospitals, CT scanners and other expensive diagnostic and treatment machines are almost in nearly constant use, versus only a few hours of weekly use in some of the smaller ones. Larger hospitals with heavier patient flows also enable their staffs to hone their skills through specialization and experience. If you're getting a knee replacement or coronary bypass, you want teams that have done scores of such procedures each month. Moving on to our next story. This is also coming from WorldNet Daily, and its sources coming from All Things D. And it's talking about how phones leave a telltale trail. The April robbery of a Cartier store in Chevy Chase, Maryland was brazen and quick after grabbing 13 watches valued at $131,000. Suspects fled in a waiting car and melted into traffic. It was one of more of a similar capers that had stumped police and the FBI. However, I think what they're getting at is that the FBI used cell phone records from the Deutsche Telekom, AG's T-Mobile USA, and Sprint Nextel Corp, and it placed the suspects near the Cartier store at the time of the robbery, as well as the other heists that they had conducted. And the FBI used those records in court filings and showed that the phone was moving along the same path traveled as by the suspects as the police chased them. And so this kind of information is at the center of the debate unleashed after contractor leaked the details of the NSA phone data collection program. So they're using it for law enforcement as well as for other reasons that we may or may not know about. Moving along, another WND.com story is in Jerusalem, a bombshell admission that has gone off until now gone unreported. Martin Dempsey, chairman of Joint Chiefs of Staff, conceded that highly trained special forces were stationed just a few hours away from Benghazi on the night of the attacks, but they were not told to deploy to Libya. In comments that may warrant further investigation, Dempsey stated in the Senate hearing Wednesday that on the night of September 11, 2012 attack, command of the Special Forces known as C-110 or the EUCOM-CIF was transferred from the Military European Command to AFRICOM or the United States Air Africa Command. Dempsey did not state any reason for the strange transfer of command, nor could he provide a timeline for the transfer the night of the attack. Dempsey's comment on the travel time between Croatia and Benghazi was incorrect. His remarks for the first time confirmed an exclusive Fox News interview aired April 30th, in which a special government operator speaking on condition of anonymity contradicted claims by the Obama administration and State Department review that there was not enough time for military forces to deploy the night of the attack. So this is rebuking the claim that they would not have had time to react. They in fact did have time to react. They were just not told to react. Next story coming up is about the White House. $100 million African trip for Barack Obama is a great bang for our buck, says the White House. You can have a very long-standing and long-running impact from the visit. This is coming from The Hill. President Obama's $100 million trip to Africa offers a great bang for our buck, the White House said Friday. Deputy National Security Advisor Ben Rhodes defended the cost of Obama's upcoming trip to South Africa, Senegal, and Tanzania, which could cost taxpayers as much as $100 million. He said the White House doesn't determine the cost of security and argued traveling to the often overlooked region would help the U.S. Our next story in the news is caffeine withdrawal is now considered to be a mental disorder. How many of you out there have decided to quit drinking your coffee? Well, then you're mentally ill, according to this article. It's coming from the San Francisco Chronicle via WND.com. San Francisco Chronicle, coffee is probably the most socially acceptable drug in the Western world. Yes, it does intoxicate. The bitter brew that kickstarts so many in the early mornings, fuels so many drawn-out work days, causes withdrawal and cravings, and some of it debilitating. Safe to say that if you can't last a day without juicing up on coffee or Diet Coke or some other caffeine-infused stimulant, you may be an addict. That's what the latest edition of the American Psychiatric Association's Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders lists caffeine withdrawal and intoxication as mental disorders that hurts someone's ability to function. We all know where that's leading. They're trying to get everything classified as a mental illness so that they can use that as fuel for fire against, to support their gun control issues in the state, in the country. Here's a follow-up story here from blacklistednews.com. It says, now the feds want your mental records. This is a source coming from the Liberty Crier. Privacy experts are warning of a strategy embedded inside of a federal plan to adjust privacy rules so that the federal government can access Americans' mental health records as part of Barack Obama's war on gun ownership. According to the plan, the government would be told the details right away if anyone is sent to a mental institution for mental defectiveness or mental illness. But the White House plan also includes notification to Washington should someone be lodged in a mental facility for other reasons. We hear that this is for gun control, and they seem to be settled on the fact that anyone mentally ill should not own a gun. And guess what? We come back to the story again. Thousands of companies have been handing over your personal data to the NSA. It isn't just the internet and the phone companies that are giving your personal info to the U.S. government. According to an astounding report by Bloomberg, 4 people familiar with the process say that the makers of hardware and software banks, internet security providers, satellite telecommunication companies, and while a host of other sources are handing over your personal data to the federal agencies, truth is that there is so much more to this NSA snooping scandal than the American people know so far. When U.S. Representative Loretta Sanchez said that what Edward Snowden had revealed was just the tip of the iceberg, she wasn't kidding. The U.S. government is trying to collect as much info as about everyone on the planet as it possibly can, and this incredibly powerful intelligence machine is not going to